Point and Click Productions, in association with Portland Mindfulness Therapy, and I myself, Joe Reinwein, PhD, licensed psychologist, present your next entry in Buddhism Randomly, in what I plan as a short series within this vlog, and this series is to be entitled What the Buddha Really Said, or more accurately, what the writings about the Buddha actually say that he really said. And we're going to start with the difficult concept. You know me, I like the hard stuff. We're going to start with the difficult concept of no self, the non-existence of the self, the illusion of having an ego. We started in the last two videos with the notion of you are the Buddha, which is a weird concept, and now we're going to move on to another weird concept of no self. And I always forget whether the Sanskrit or the Pali for this is anatta or anicca. I could look it up, but that's not really important to me. What's important is that one of the unique characteristics of Buddhism is that the historical Buddha, if we are to believe the scriptures, and certainly the scriptures say very clearly over and over again that having a self is an illusion, sometimes translated as a delusion. So why don't we work backwards? Why would we have a sense that there is a self? What do we even mean by a self? Well, if we think about it, an animal moving around in the world needs to have a reference point against which to measure all of the things. I mean, just to reach your paw out, grab something and bring it to your mouth, at minimum you need a sense of where is my mouth and which mouth is it that I'm trying to feed. In some cases animals might feed an offspring's mouth, but generally speaking I've watched a lot of animals, and animals spend a lot of time using a paw or their snout just directly. They need to have a sense that here's my snout and there's the food I'm going to eat, at minimum. Or here comes something at me, I need to get out of the way, or I might be the snack myself. So when we go down to the very, very beginning of what might be the self, we get something very prosaic, something very simple and basic of, I am here. And the stuff out there that I might have reason to want to manipulate, pardon me, lingering cough here, ice water. I might want to manipulate these things out there in some way. I might have a thing here, and I'm going to put it over here for some purpose. We need to at least have a sense that here's the hand, and here's the thing, and here's the place that I want it to be, and here's where I'm going to put it. So it comes down to practical things. Now, as we evolved, this sense got more and more complicated, and in some ways more and more important. For instance, we started to be able to think about, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow, and here's why. Here's who I'm going to convince to do what. Here's who in my tribe I am going to talk to in order to convince them to do X, Y, or Z. Or maybe even on a simpler level, there's that guy, I'm going to go consult with that guy, gal, whomever. And again, we need a sense of, here's this thing I call I, and here's some motivations, and I'm going to move this physical body over there because I can't move any other physical body with my mind. My mind gets to move this physical body, at least so far as far as I can tell. So then as that gets more and more elaborate, what are the threats that this guy faces? What are the threats that this person faces? And how am I going to counter them? Now it's getting more and more elaborate. And then as we acquire more and more symbolic thought in our evolution, both as a species and as an individual, from when we're a baby up through toddlerhood, up through early childhood, later childhood, adolescence, adulthood, we start having more and more sense of, I want this, and I need this, and I don't want this. I'm going to push this away from me. So these functions of I want, and let's find something different, something handy in my little dodecahedron of many tricks. I have this thing. So let's say this is the thing I don't want. I'm pushing that away, but I'm grabbing these and I'm pushing these away. And I don't like these orange balls. They're too orange. I like these white ones. Or the opposite. I don't like these white ones. They're too holy. And I like these orange and blue ones. I want this. So this having a self is intimately tied up for very simple, very easy to understand reasons in what Buddhists call aversion and desire. Gimme, 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 gimme. Sometimes called greed, aversion, sometimes called hate. Numerous ways to translate this. So this business of having a self turns out to be kind of important. We can't really feed ourselves if we don't have a self to feed. We would just sit there going, yeah, which I do a good portion of the time anyway. But it's good to have other functions besides sitting there going, and in order to do anything, we need a reference point. And so there's that mechanical sort of almost mathematical reason why there has to be some way that this nervous system and brain body organism thing represents itself on a kind of mental map, if you will. Even though there's problems with talking about it as a mental map, we're not getting into deep cognitive science philosophy here. We just want to keep things simple. What we might go on to talk about is then in what ways is this illusory, and why would we care? Why would we want to even think about the self as illusory, as the Buddha repeatedly asks us to do, repeatedly asks us to do, repeatedly asks us to do throughout Buddhist scriptures across the enormous literature that we have in place of a Buddhist Bible. We don't have any one canon. We have many canonical and non-canonical scriptures and writings, and the line between canonical and non-canonical seems less important in the Buddhist world than it might be in, say, the Christian or Jewish or Muslim world as far as religious texts. Well, let's just get started on this, and then we'll pick up on that in our next video. Let's get started on, well, why would we want to see the self as something of an illusion? Well, probably because its uses are limited. And then when we take it too seriously, when we forget that it's an abstraction, when we forget that, yeah, there's a lump of flesh over here and it makes noises, it flaps its lips, the noises come out that people can understand, but how does this make it me or I? You don't say that this is me or I. You say that that lump of flesh watching this video is me or I. Well, that's interesting. So this me or I thing is relative, isn't it? Because there's no one person who gets to be me or I, or if you like, all of us get to be me or I. We all have a self, a psychological self. Sometimes it gets in the way. And those are the times in which we might want to consider, if we dig this stuff, which I obviously dig, to use out-of-date parlance, if we dig this stuff, if we're into this stuff, then we might want to ask, well, what is this no-self thing all about? And that, I think, I will do the honor of respecting its complexity and doing a whole video on, well, now that we have some sense of what the self might be, let's talk about what no self might mean, since we clearly exist. So then what's no self? having no self or considering that the self is an illusion. Tune in next time for Why You Don't Exist.